A powerful voice interrupted them, and from the house it was said that she could come in. As the doors slowly opened, a slight creak could be heard, and there was a sense of excitement in the air. She began to walk slowly into the building. As she entered, she saw the king sitting and greeting the queen of the coconut grove. She shook her head in embarrassment, saying that she was very grateful to him. She also added that the royal palace looks normal. At this time, our main character realized that she liked the construction technology. It interested her. With a grin on his face, he answered her that this was just a temporary palace. The real one was still under construction. All the residents would be settled there. She, taking hold of his waist, asked if he would really allow all people to live there. To which the man replied that this was all temporary, and that later everyone would live in stone houses. The girl immediately wrapped her weapon around her, pointing it towards the king. He understood that with such a body he would not have time to react. The queen enveloped him in her weapons. Standing right in front of him, she placed her foot on him. Our king could not believe that she was going to kill him. She ordered him to shut up, arching her back and smiling. Holding the knife to her face, she said that no one knows men better than her. She has ways to make them do it. Our king began to understand what was being said. He began to blush. She, also blushing, asked the king how he could understand that she had grabbed him. He thought about how to remain calm, because it was very exciting. Immediately switching to a serious face, the king asked her if she really thought he had not played it safe. At this time he was thinking that there was no plan. He was finished, because with such a body in a one-on-one fight he had no chance. Suddenly the door opened and Ayu said that everything was ready. The banquet could begin. An awkward picture appeared before her, and all participants were shocked by it. The queen of the grove immediately unwrapped the king. Our main character, laughing, said that they had already finished their conversation, and that they could all go and eat together. He asked his subordinate if they had made a fire, to which she replied that everything had already been done long ago. The queen was lost in her thoughts, because in her tribe all the guys were weaklings. But this man was not so weak. When they left the house, they saw a big fire and a friendly atmosphere all around. Her fellow tribeswomen began to shout for their queen to come to them quickly, because the meat would soon get cold. Our main character at this time was handing the salt to Ayu, so that she would share a little bit with the coconut grove. She immediately told them how to use it and explained what it was for. The queen of the grove began to appear, to which the girl said that if she didn't want to, she didn't have to take it. All around, everyone who sprinkled salt on the meat was screaming. They couldn't believe that the taste had changed so much. Standing and watching all this, our protagonist thought that if only he could buy a little more time for Shigu and Shun. The queen, having tasted the meat, was delighted with the admiration of the taste of this meat. At this time, screams and sounds of trees were heard in the forest. These were our main characters, who were looking for bulls, making their way through dense foliage. Noticing the herd, Comrade Shigu asked him if they really didn't have enough meat, since it seemed to him that there was much more than they could eat. To which he replied that they were not here for hunting. And then he added that he would understand everything later. Now he just needed to follow his orders. Suddenly, a boy with a skin on his head, seeing the smoke, cried out that the king would give them a signal. It was time for them to act. Shigu immediately blew his new whistle, also signaling to the others. They immediately began throwing spears at the black bulls. The hits were accurate, and during that time they greatly improved their throwing skills and accuracy. The enraged bulls rushed to the side. Shigu shouted for Xiong to get ready, because they were approaching him. At this time, Xiong stood on the tree preparing to attack, because there was only one chance. Noticing one of the largest bulls, he prepared to attack, and then jumping from the tree he swung for a powerful blow. He thrust his spear straight into the black bull's back, causing it to scream in pain. Xiong shouted that this bull was his. He succeeded. The boy saddled the running bull in front of the herd. It seemed to him that he could hold on. His life could end there. The running bulls destroyed everything in their path, breaking trees and demolishing the earth. At this time, Xiong was only thinking about how to hold on. He was trying not to let his fear get the better of him. The bull thrashed against the trees in an attempt to throw the bug off his back, but Xiong shouted that these were pathetic attempts, since even their king had become prey to them. At this time, the rest of our heroes were watching all this. One of them was a boy with a skin on his head, and when he realized that the herd was moving east, he knew that something had to be done, because their course had to be changed. Shigu, who was sitting nearby, said that he had given a signal. Taking the whistle he was given into his mouth, he began to whistle. The sound of the whistle was heard all around. The herd of bulls also paid attention to it. Xiong couldn't believe that they were running in the wrong direction, but he also knew that Shigu wouldn't just give the signal like that. Taking hold of the protruding spears, he began to try to turn the bull around. The beast tried to resist. The herd gradually began to disappear into the thick foliage, and their heart-rending cries began to subside. At this time, joyful raptures were heard around the fire. The queen cried while eating the meat. She understood that if she ate so much meat, she would definitely get fat. But she could not stop, because it was so delicious. At this time, our main character was watching what was happening, looking around. Seeing the birds taking off, he realized that very soon his plan would be realized. No one around even suspected that this was all part of a big plan. A girl ran out of the foliage. She was screaming. These were screams of fear. Running closer, everyone heard that she was screaming. She was screaming about trouble. Not noticing the hillock, she stumbled. Falling right at the feet of her queen, she cast a disdainful glance in her direction. She asked her what could have happened that made her come running in such a panic. She, raising her head in tears, told how a herd of maddened bulls had invaded their territory and started to run amok, and those who remained in the camp were unable to resist them. Her queen's gaze changed. She couldn't believe what was said. She shouted to everyone. They were coming back. They had to hurry, because every minute counted. She couldn't understand how this had happened, because the bulls had never entered their territory before. At this time, the bulls were breaking everything around, and the girls from the Coconut Grove tribe were lying on the ground unconscious. Those who managed to climb the trees fired their weapons, trying to inflict at least some damage on the animals, but the stones only bounced off their thick skin. It was useless. Seeing all this, they understood that in order to save the sisters, they had to go down and engage in hand-to-hand combat. Jumping from the tree, they shouted that they would die for their queen. But just a second later, the bull blew them apart, throwing them in different directions. One of the girls fell right next to the bull, who swung. She understood that she wouldn't have time to dodge. She tearfully screamed that she didn't want to die. A fist had already appeared in front of her face, and she was trying to defend herself with her hands. The sisters screamed because one of their sisters was about to die, and they rushed towards her. Suddenly, lying on the ground, she saw only a fist that froze right in front of her. Because of the dust she raised, she didn't notice at first what had stopped the powerful blow. But as soon as the dust cleared, she saw that the hand of this monster was held by her queen. She, barely holding back the bull, screamed that she would not allow her people to be maimed. With a wave, she sent the enraged animal flying into the air. As the bull fell, it destroyed the ground beneath it, and it was the queen's most powerful blow. But her opponent only exhaled and began to stand up. He began to accelerate in order to strike back at his attacker. Rushing towards the queen with incredible speed, he intended to deliver a powerful blow to her. Rushing past her, he was able to touch her with his powerful body. The queen began to cough from the pain. She did not have time to completely dodge. When she landed, they managed to catch her in their arms. Her lips were covered in blood, and she squinted in pain as she tried to see what was happening. It was our main character. He was asking the girl if everything was okay with her. Having put her on her feet, he told her tribe to rest. They would take care of the rest themselves. The queen said that she did not understand why the herd went crazy and attacked them. He glanced towards the bulls and began to shout. Standing face to face with one of the bulls who was leading the herd, he asked him if he had forgotten what he had done. He just started growling in his direction. The king couldn't believe that he didn't remember him, because his plan was that they would get scared and run away. Suddenly, the lines on the bull's body gradually began to turn blue instead of red. Exhaling heavily, our hero realized that he was scared. Cold sweat was running down his face. Taking out an axe, he pointed it towards the bull, shouting that he was lucky, because they met the remaining herd so quickly. Our king, grinning, thought that it was certainly frightening that they had found a leader for themselves so quickly. But he was still far from his former self. Seeing that very axe, the bull began to tremble, and the hair on his body began to stand on end. Our protagonist continued to shout towards the bulls. He said that he had long wanted to finish off the remaining tribe, and they, in turn, froze in one place and listened to his every word. The rest of our main hero's fellow tribesmen were not going to stand aside. They rushed into battle. They lit torches. They were intent on demonstrating their superiority over the Coconut Grove tribe. Shigu grabbed one of the bulls and shouted to Xiongnu. He let go of him abruptly and folded his arms, while the boy jumped towards Shigu. Stepping on the hands of his big friend, he pushed off. Soaring into the air, he found himself directly above the frightened animal. And landing right on his head, Xiong grabbed him by the horns. The bull squealed. Looking at all this, the king saw that his son's ability was horse riding. The boy mounted the new king of the bulls, causing him to squirm from one side to the other. At this time the king told the queen to leave, but she refused. After all, the herd had not yet been driven away, so she had to enter the battle. But our hero was not going to let her go. He grabbed her hand and insisted on his proposal. He told her that they couldn't cope with these monsters, because he took few people with you, and entering into battle is the same as going to certain death. The girl, standing, could not object in any way. He also added that it would be better to send people to their territory so that everyone could heal their wounds, after which they could calmly return home. He was willing to provide homes, food, and guarantee safety. The queen looked around. She saw her wounded people. She understood that they could not fight any longer. Ayu joined in her king's speech. She asked the queen if she would rather watch her subordinates die in vain. She just looked menacingly to the side. She understood everything perfectly. Suddenly, raising her hand up, she shouted that the victims should stumble to the north. Gritting her teeth, one of the girls screamed even louder that they were retreating. She began to urge everyone on, shouting for the wounded to be sent forward. The king, turning to Ayu, told her to lead everyone to the camp, while he intended to stay behind to gain time for their safe retreat. The queen just walked by silently. Ayu asked her king to be careful. At this time, Shigu and the others entered into a fierce fight with the bulls. Girls appeared from behind, one of them shouting that they should all gather up their courage and finally deal with these damn bulls. Shigu told them to retreat with the others. But they did not listen to them. They ran past him as if they had not heard him. The king, smiling, told Shigu that these women were very brave. They could not lag behind them. All our heroes rushed into battle. Loud cries began to be heard. After some time, the sun began to set and there was a sad silence all around. People started coming out of the forest. One of the girls ran up to those walking. She asked where the king and the others were. Ayu replied that the king and the others remained, and also added that many wounded came with her. They needed a good rest. Stretching her hand towards the houses, she said that there should be enough for that number of people. The girl thought that it was only thanks to Dade that they were able to build all these houses so quickly. She also added that those who are not injured should go and help her bring food and water. Ayu brought the queen to one of the houses, saying that she should rest. And then she added that she would take care of the rest of the people, and she wouldn't have to worry about them. She just lowered her head and quietly, very quietly uttered words of gratitude. Having closed the entrance to the queen's house, our heroine exhaled heavily. She was very happy that everything was going well. Arriving at her king's chambers, she saw him sitting tired on his bed. He explained to the girl that the essence of his plan was to use the least possible cost to achieve the goal, namely, the conquest of the coconut grove. In the end, they only ended a hard battle, but not a war. She was happy. She was grateful to all the gods that he was their king, that he appeared in their lives. On the second day, everyone had already settled in, and the girls began to do their own thing. At this time, the men were monitoring what was happening. Yes. I approached one of the night guards and asked him if everything went well, to which he replied that everything was fine. One of the girls stood and guarded the house of her queen. Suddenly a shadow appeared on her, not paying attention to her surroundings. She thought that it was cloudy today. When suddenly they turned to her, she was scared. She couldn't believe her eyes, because in front of her stood a simply enormous woman. Yes. She told her that their king invited the queen of the coconut grove to his palace. It seemed to her that he wanted to discuss something extremely important. At this time there was silence in the palace. The king looked at the system window, his attention fully focused on it. In front of him was the number 8. That was how many days remained until the end of the mission. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and he ordered the system window to hide. Ayu turned to the king, saying that she had brought the queen. Upon entering, the green-haired girl immediately said yes, and then explained that this was her answer to the merging of their tribes. But after that, her gaze immediately darkened, and she told him not to dream. I never dreamed that I would be able to force her and take advantage of her weakness. Standing up and extending his hand, the king explained that this was not coercion, but merely a profitable deal. He added that he could teach them how to build houses, and also to make weapons and light fire. Well, in return they will be united with his tribe. Coming up and standing in front of her, he sternly told her to accept his rules and protection. And leaning over, he added that in some things it was useless to rely only on courage, causing the queen to become frightened. He asked her about the cruelty of the sea tribe. He could not believe that she did not know about their strength and cruelty. He continued, comparing her to a wounded deer that would soon die. The queen screamed. She asked him to stop. Turning away, she again asked him to stop. She told him that it was not that simple. She could not force them to accept the power of a stranger, except if there is a fight and it is won, because this is the only way strength is recognized in their tribe. Our main character began to smile. Thoughts began to slip through his head. These were his thoughts about his victory. Once outside, the entire Coconut Grove tribe gathered at our hero's palace. He loudly declared that their queen was wounded, so she could not fight, and therefore, to make things fair, he would not fight either. Therefore Shigu will go into battle instead of him. He will fight in his place. He, having assumed the pose of a winner, began to chuckle loudly and ask which of them would dare to fight with him. One of the girls came out and said that she would fight him. Shigu recognized her, because this was the same girl with pigtails who fought with him against the bulls. Laughing,